I am so excited to be sharing with you today a deep dive look inside ancient world art. This is an art history curriculum with hands-on immersive projects, and it is available on our website, where'dyoulearnthat.com, Where'd You Learn That Homeschool. This was created as a joint project between myself and my sister, who is an artist and is an art educator. And I'm going to take you on a look inside so that you can know what to expect. First of all, you can see the table of contents right here. There is also a free sample, which I will link to down below. And that also includes the complete table of contents so that you can see the topics being covered. This art curriculum is designed as a companion course to our Ancient World History course. Now, the two do not have to be used together. This is standalone. All the information you need for these lessons is within this book itself. However, the two courses are designed to complement each other, and I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like. This is the parent guide for Ancient World History. So for here, we're looking at week 11, Ancient Chinese Inventions. We have our readings, our picture book, our spine readings, our nonfiction readings on ancient Chinese history. And then we have right here on day 5, it's scheduled to read lesson 11 and complete project. Now, you can use this alone for an ancient history, a literature-based ancient history course for your children. You will notice that there are not many hands-on activities recommended or scheduled throughout here, and that is because most of the hands-on experiences and activities are in our ancient world art. So if you want more hands-on and you want more exploration, a deeper exploration of art, then you can add this in. This will definitely enrich the experience, but it's not required. You can also just use this on its own, or you can use it alongside any other elementary ancient history curriculum. So to show you what this looks like, we have week 11, Ancient Chinese Inventions is our topic as we're learning about ancient China. Then we have art lesson 11. That's all it will tell you here. Art lesson 11 from this, and there is a note saying that this specifically references ancient world art. But lesson 11 is learning about jade in ancient China. And we have a soap carving activity inspired by ancient Chinese jade carvings, the bee discs of ancient China. So it's just an example of how they connect. I also have an introduction. This is also included in the sample. If you want to really read it and understand it, I highly recommend downloading the sample. But just to know, this course is not designed to be a, hey, here, look, there was this fascinating and pretty piece of art from the ancient world, so memorize its name. That's not what this is about. This is not just, hey, look, there's the Ishtar Gate. This is trying to understand the materials and the meaning behind art, trying to understand more about the people who created the art. It does show that this was created and written by someone who is very passionate about, who is an expert in art and has spent a lot of time studying this herself. I loved learning so much about art while working together with my sister in developing this. So throughout this course, your child will be challenged. You will be challenged to think like an archaeologist, not just to look at the art and say, well, isn't that interesting? But to look at the art and say, what does this mean? What can we learn about ancient peoples through this art? There is a QR code here, which will take you to our YouTube channel, a different YouTube channel, Where'd You Learn That Homeschool, where we have a playlist for tutorials on some of the more complex art projects. Not every art project needed a tutorial, but we did create about 12 tutorials for some of the ones that might benefit from some video viewing. So you can check out that YouTube channel. We have a complete supplies needed page. A lot of these supplies are very simple and basic, brown paper, hot glue. We have our master supplies that you'll need. Just have those on hand, and most of us will have those on hand, a hole punch, scissors, paintbrushes, watercolor paint, acrylic paint, clay. Then there will be a few more unusual things. For example, we suggest having bars of soap, and ideally green or white bars of soap for our jade carving inspired activity. We'll need some flat pieces of styrofoam to use for printing plates for a couple of activities. So there are a few more unusual pieces, and really you just do need some supplies to have really cool hands-on activities. So yes, there are some supplies needed. Then we have our read aloud lessons. So they all follow the same structure. This is just your introduction page. It gives you some core vocabulary to know as the teacher, and you can introduce this vocabulary and definitions to your children, do what you want with it. There's a little bit of teaching notes. One thing to note that's mentioned here as well as in the introduction is that throughout this course, the end goal is that your child is supposed to be designing a museum exhibit inspired by ancient art. So with each project that they are creating, you're instructed to keep it, store it, create a portfolio, a folder, or a little box where they can store their projects. And then at the end, they're going to choose a few of their projects. They're going to write museum placards to explain what is the connection between their project and ancient art, and design their own exhibition of ancient art and their art projects to invite guests or family members or friends to come see. So then you have a short read aloud lesson that's a couple pages, a lot of pictures. This is a very visual curriculum, and yes, you are going to want to print it in color. There are several homeschool printing websites, small family-run homeschool printing businesses. That could be a good option to send this file to for being able to print it in full color, because there is a lot of color. Otherwise, those of you with Epson, EcoTanks, or other tank-style printers shouldn't have a problem. But do note that the teacher's guide is in color because we really did need the color for an art curriculum. So lesson 2, the standard of Ur, learning about this mosaic and what it means. So as you can see, we just have these simple lessons, and this is on day 5. And this is meant to be a once a week lesson. And some of the lessons do have multiple activities to choose from. My sister went a little bit overboard on sometimes wanting to give you some options or wanting you to really have a chance to take it further. But remember, you can choose one hands-on activity. You don't have to do everything. You can adapt it to your family's needs, time, and space. So as everything, this is adaptable. I'll just continue giving you a look inside. So each lesson is coordinating directly with the culture being learned about in our ancient history. So if you're using a different ancient history curriculum, it won't coordinate exactly. For me, I wouldn't worry about that. I don't think it needs to. It's nice if it can coordinate. If the culture you're learning about Babylon in history, and then you learn about ancient Babylonian art, that's cool. But it's also okay. So I wouldn't, if you're using a different history curriculum, that's fine. Don't stress about needing to cover exactly the same topics. It's cool if you can, but not necessary. So we really tried to include a variety of art projects. So here we're learning about Babylonian and Assyrian art. We have the Lamassu, we have the Ishtar Gate and the different animals and kind of what they represented. And we learn about how mythical creatures are usually a set of different features from different animals that are combined. So here we have our little example mythical creature, and we do have a video tutorial for creating this one. So your child is going to be creating their own mythical creature in clay. This one is a lesson on the ancient Hebrews, and in this lesson we chose to contrast the art left behind by the ancient Hebrew people versus the art of their neighbors in that part of the world and in the times in which they live. So when much of the ancient art we study is religious, but the religious art of the Hebrews looked very, very different from the religious art left behind by other neighboring cultures. Their art was left behind as seen in the written word, the people of the book. And we see some art, we see some little bit more modern art in how their scrolls of scripture were stored. And then we get an exploration of calligraphy as an art form. And writing the Shema is the calligraphy activity recommended for that day. Then Phoenicians, just trying to give you a quick glimpse inside. As you can see, sometimes we do have extra media extensions that you could have for extra articles to read or extra videos to watch. Those aren't necessary, but some of them, especially the videos, can be really cool with looking into ancient art. Just want to give you a peek inside. So I really love this activity. This is a cardboard sculpture made with layered cardboard inspired by these Persian wall sculptures. So you see this right here. this archer, and then you get to create a layered cardboard sculpture, and you can paint it if you want, add color if you want, or just leave it like that, which I thought was really cool. I will say this is probably one of our most challenging activities just because of the amount of cutting involved. We did try to keep the art activities fairly open-ended, so a second grader will be able to do them and an eighth grader would be able to do these. Just the end results will look different based on a child's skill, ability, and you might need to offer more assistance and more help and guidance with a younger student. This is another one of my really favorite projects. I just loved how this fabric turned out using dual process block printing and glue batik, inspired by cloth dyeing. That is a very ancient art form from India. So this is another lesson connected to ancient Indian history and Buddhist art that comes out of India and the surrounding regions. Then printmaking. Then we go into ancient China. Give you a little peek into some further lessons. Jomon, Japan. We get to ancient Greece. We have a couple of weeks on Grecian art. So red figure and black figure pottery and how styles change over time. Of course, we have architecture. We do have several lessons related to architecture. We purposely tried to incorporate different elements of art. Architecture, fashion, weaving we have as one of our lessons. So there's visual art as well as functional art. We do also get a little bit into some historically complicated ideas like stolen art and stealing art from different cultures, or using art as propaganda, because that's a very common element of art in history. Again, another fashion-related topic, jewelry of Egypt and how it was used. So we're not just saying, hey, look at this jewelry, isn't it pretty and colorful? We're talking about, what did jewelry mean to the Egyptians who wore it? How was it used? And how is it different in some ways or similar in some ways to the way that people wear jewelry today? What was the meaning of the jewelry? We're always seeking to take this deeper and further. Skipping forward a bit here, we also go into some ancient art that you don't hear as much about. You know, we might hear a lot about Roman and Greek art, but we even get to go into and explore the art of the Olmec, the faces, the heads left behind. And here we're getting into some ideas of the faces and the identity of people. And we might not know as much about Olmec cultures, but looking at what they left behind is a way to know more about them. This is another architecture lesson of the Temple of Kukulkan and the shadow used. Here we have a Quetzalcoatl pop-up paper craft, and I just loved her idea for using a pop-up here because we're learning about shadow and how shadow was used in that piece of architecture. And then a pop-up can create a shadow, and you're given instructions of moving a flashlight around and observing how the shadow changes. We explore the Nazca lines of ancient Peru, and then we get to create scratch art, and scratch art where you're making your own scratch art paper. Although, as a homeschool mom, I also want to tell you, if you don't want to make your own scratch art paper, and you don't want to follow the instructions for making the paper, you just want to buy some, you can also do that. We get into the rock art of ancient Australia and talk about how rock art is something found in continents around the world. Then over in Micronesia, we learn about Nan Madol and this really interesting city built on the sea, a map of the city there. So this is such a fun and memorable project. You get to build the ruins of a stone and water city. And just this is an example of what ours turned out like, which we scavenged. These are mostly not really rocks. They're pieces of ceramic tile that we scavenged from the beach. A few of them are rocks of some sort. We added some foam, leaves, and vines as the jungle is taking over our ruined city. But a very memorable activity indeed. Now, a number of the activities do come with additional worksheets that are printed. The worksheets are always referenced in the activity guide. So you will have a worksheet for whatever you are learning about. And some of them are very simple, like this, where registers were introduced and you are given instructions on what to do with registers, or this is for brainstorming for your mythical creature before you make it out of clay. This is learning about calligraphy. But then some of them have actual specific cutouts that you're supposed to do for paper crafts. So this is for creating a Phoenician ship right here. And the cardboard sculpture, layers, all the stencils. As I said, this is probably the one that's most challenging as far as cutting, but it's so cool. I'm learning about Jomon pot, the styles of Minoan pottery. So we do have a variety of these, and these need to be printed out single-sided. I would not recommend printing them as a book because most of them, you gotta be painting on them or cutting them up or doing something with them, so I wouldn't print them as a book, and most of them I would print on a heavier weight of paper, a thicker weight of paper. It doesn't necessarily need to be cardstock. My printer doesn't usually work with cardstock, but at least a thicker, stronger weight of paper. At the end, we have 2 lessons kind of wrapping it up. We learned about being a museum curator and talking about identifying forgeries, which is quite an interesting topic. And then your child is given instructions to begin curating their ancient art exhibit using their own projects. And finally, we wrap it up with talking about patterns in ancient art, and interesting patterns that come out from this whole study. And your final project is to have your ancient art exhibition and kind of end with this big celebration of all that you've learned. All right, I hope that this detailed look inside was helpful for you. Let me know, are you going to be using ancient world art in your home? I actually think that this would make a fantastic curriculum also for co-ops or small schools, small groups of families getting together to explore and do hands-on art exploration together. I would love to hear it if you're doing that. And definitely share this curriculum with your friends who are looking for hands-on explorations of art of the ancient world for their family. Let me know what you think. Bye!